All right, let's talk about where we're going here. I have not been here in quite a number of years, but this is a really neat, off the beaten path piece of old Florida. To be honest, I'm not sure who owns this. I don't know if it's a congregation or the state. I'm thinking the whole thing is now state property. And this is the coolest story of what the community did. Got a call from Tim, the owner of Stump Knockers Restaurant, to inform me they were going to have a service out here. You'll see the here in a few minutes. This is the old Cedar Grove Church. This is as old Florida as it gets. And I was surprised, almost shocked when they told me what they'd done. They decided to restore the church so they could have services. So they got together, Tim and Shane, local businessmen, restaurateurs, just on their own. They wanted to have services out here, and it's just too hot in summer. So they, on their own, paid to put in a generator and mini split air condition, and restored the church to where they can have services now. The church has never had power, and according to what they told me, Progress Energy wanted $80,000 to run a power line in here. So they just raised funds on their own and put in a generator. I have not seen it since it's restored. I've not been here in quite a number of years. So I'm really interested to see what it's like out here now. Now, what we did not capture is it took us 5 minutes to cross the road. Literally to cross the road. The traffic is so heavy. And we just came down this little path in this beautiful piece of old Florida. So that's the water source right there. That is the only water source for this church. This is all the community, self-started. Came out here. They got ends over there for gas. That might be for the generator. I bet that powers the generator. I think they have a generator out there to power up the air conditioning for the church. They've done a fantastic job here. Let's go look in the cemetery. We'll look at some of the names. Very close by, there's a tract of land that's called the Ross Prairie. That's the Ross family under that cedar tree. That's the Ross of the Ross Prairie. I see a number of the stars and bars here of the Confederate flags. And I'll tell a little story about this, because this is like, I don't know, we're not supposed to talk about this stuff anymore. But I used to be caretaker of a cemetery in this county, and it was much larger than this. So it was massive in size compared to this. And I did it for 10 years. After 10 years, you get to know every marker, and you kind of get to know a lot about it just from going there week after week for a long period of time. A number of years ago, it was summertime and I needed to mow it. It was a 3-acre cemetery, massive, very large. And I needed help. So I called one of my buddies, Glenn. Glenn, I played Little League Baseball with him. Know him all my life. Glenn is a big, burly black man. He's just a big, burly black man. And so I said, Glenn, I really need help. I said, I'll go mow. He has a lawn service. I said, I need his help. I said, I got behind, need your help. He said, sure. So I paid him to go in. So we go out there to do the job, this 15-minute ride, and we're just chit-chatting as old friends. And I thought about it, and I go, Glenn, I said, I don't think this is going to bother you, but I want to broach this before we get there. there's Confederate veterans out there. And the Daughters of the Confederacy put Confederate flags on there. He said, well, that doesn't matter. And we just had the most interesting conversation about, it wasn't about race or anything like that. It was like what it was like for those guys to come home and then have to interact with the men that used to be their slaves. And just the interaction of the people that era. It wasn't bitter, it wasn't race, it was just an interesting conversation about what it would be like during that era. And after I thought about it, and actually I used to write a newspaper column, I wrote about that and the way we approach that. I still see Glenn often, and I like to ride out there with him again, now that we have a YouTube channel, and continue that conversation. Glenn's a very bright guy, and we have some interesting conversations. If you spend 10 years as caretaker of an ancient cemetery, you become very aware of how early people died up until the 1930s and 40s. And this is a different cemetery, but I'll help you recreate a lesson that was just really hard for me to take in. These are hard to see. Whenever you are caretaker of a cemetery and you see it and you learn, just as an aside, there was a husband and wife in the other cemetery I kept up, and they died within 3 or 4 or 5 days apart in 1919, and they were in their 20s. And I had, after going back there many times, I had to assume it was 1918 perhaps, but I had to assume it was the Spanish flu took them both. They were a young couple in their 20s, died about 5 days apart. When I maintained the other cemetery, at Red Level is the name of it, I used a very massive machine because it was a massive place to cut. And so you had to be pretty good with the machine to mow a place around all of this and still be able to do a large place. So you're hyper-aware of not driving over someone's stone. All the years, I never destroyed a stone. After the first time I did it, it was a lot of work. I had to work slow. And I had a giant machine, the handles are this big, it cuts a 5-foot path, but in between all of this stuff. And I was working in the cemetery, and I kind of drove myself into a spot where I couldn't maneuver around. I had to stop and back out. And I thought, why are they so close together? So I stopped to look because I was just curious. Plus, I got to figure out how I'm going to do this. It was the infant section of the cemetery. So the plots were small. Many of them were nameless, as this is. This is infant of EWWNPL Jordan, the child that never had a name. Died as an infant. The parents are on it. It really hits home how many children were lost as infants or very young in life by childhood illnesses. So many children died at the age of 3, 4, 5, and 8. And it really helps you appreciate the modern medicine by learning intimately a 150-year-old cemetery and seeing all those children that never got past the 5th grade. So anyway, that's just my thought when I visit a cemetery like this. This is the Ross family right over here. We took the time to look it up. Ross Prairie State Forest is a 3,542-acre tract of public conservation land that was acquired in 1995 through the Conservation and Recreation Lands Program. That's land that belonged to the Ross family right here that's now become state property. Right over here is the Jordan family. Probably an equal amount of state land that belonged to the Jordan family. Now, back in those days, all this land did not have the value that it has today. They were cattle ranchers. In fact, I will tell you, off the top of my head, a story of the Jordan family, the same family here. Him and his buddy were cretins that drove on Highway 200. Highway 200 we just drove in on. You can't cross the road. the traffic is just relentless nonstop. When Mr. Jordan and his buddy, Cabo, were preteens, they had one of the first cars in the neighborhood. At that time, Highway 200 was the sand path. The Jordans had their own car. T, I'll call him, was allowed to drive the car. There was no such thing as a driver's license. If you had a car, you drove it. If there was a road, you went down it. The road was the sand path, and he was not allowed to drive in the afternoon on Highway 200 because the Model Ts had very narrow tires and they were subject to get stuck in the sand. And if it were in the afternoon, there was a possibility there would not be another car coming along that day and he would be stranded with a car. So he was not allowed to travel in the afternoon because there may not be another car to come along if he got stuck. Fella told me that story not very long ago. Cabo passed away within the last few years. His family has also sold off a vast acreage along the Little River that's now preserved for conservation. So the Drakes, the Roths, the Jordans were largely instrumental in all of the state property we have in this area now. We just walked up here. I had not visited this part of the cemetery. I'd never looked at the names here. I instantly recognized this name. Petaway was the supervisor of the turpentine stills at several towns that are no longer. Leroy, after Leroy, he managed the turpentine still at Hyattville. Hyattville is a ghost town that's almost unknown, and I literally, until to this moment, did not realize it was even identified as a town on this tombstone. Hyattville there's very little there now. There's very few people that know it ever existed. So this is really significant. And the Petaway family, they were very well known in this area. And as so often is the case we just spoke about, their young son died at the age of 2. It's just really sad to see all the infant deaths, even the most wealthy, influential people in that area. Turner Lake over in Rainbow Lakes Estates would be probably the same Turner family. They wouldn't have a random bucket on there if their well still isn't functional. But we will get some crystal clear spring water. This isn't any kind of stuff that needs a filter either. Nice and cool. Nice and cool, crystal clear. That's a good well right there. How old school was that? A fan with a Lord's Prayer on it. That's old school Florida Backwoods Church. There she flagged in the corner. Okay, it's a fall Sunday morning. We're at Cedar Grove Cemetery and Cedar Grove Church. Normally a very peaceful, quiet place here. This morning it's buzzing with activity. They have a service here today. And because this is such a remote place, the locals coordinated to install a generator in the outbuilding. And so the generator's buzzing, and apparently they've installed a new sound system that they're tuning up. So this normally serene, quiet place is kind of a beehive activity as they prepare for their morning service. Made in USA. I was here for the service 2 weeks ago. Today was to be their dinner on the grounds. One of the driving forces behind restoring this church is the owner of Stump Knockers Restaurant down the way. And last time I was here, he had spoke about the dinner on the grounds. And it's today. And the folks are pulling in real time for the service. Arson is suspected. The service was Sunday. They locked up as usual. Tuesday, someone came out, most likely to visit the cemetery, and the church was gone. The police came out, did a thorough investigation. This is a bit surreal. This is where I was standing for the service 2 weeks ago. That's the base of the flagpole with the American flag. I stood just inside the door. This is the original foundation stone for the Cedar Grove Church. I guess the front porch was added later, had cinder blocks. The front door was here. Nice lady was playing the piano. Everyone that came for the service has since left. And so this is what it is. The site of the old Cedar Grove Church.